You know that today when I was contemplating coming here, and really all week, it was one of those weeks where it's like, I just want to get to church. I just want to be in church. You know, sometimes when I'm coming to church on a Sunday morning, I notice that I can really, really breathe. I notice I can really, really breathe. It's one of the ways that I know in my life that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I can really breathe, and then sometimes when my breath starts to choke down a little bit, it's like, okay, I'm in fearful thoughts. Somewhere something's gone awry. And so my breath is this beautiful gift to me of knowing when I'm in my joy, when I'm in my joy. How about you? Have you noticed that? Yeah. Yes, it's a pure joy. Well, here we are, just 30 days from the presidential election in the U.S. And I got a few questions for you. You all right with that? The first one's, how you doing? Good, good. You remembering to breathe? Yeah. The second question I have for you this morning is, are you going to be okay regardless of the outcome? Yes. You must. You must. Thank you. That was cute. That was cute. Nothing like honesty, right? Yeah. But the call is absolutely to know that there's a greater plan. And so my third question to you this morning is, are you willing to become more and more aware that you are a vital instrument, that you've actually chosen to be here at this time to be the one to transform our country and our world? Are you willing? Yes. To transform it from the love of power to the power of love, here at this home of the consciousness of love. Yeah, regardless of the outcome. Remember, you have within you and all around you a divine human, a literal technology within you to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, to bring the Christ consciousness here to earth in a greater way. Are you ready to explore? Yes. Let's explore. You know, several talks ago, we visited this understanding that we're literally living in this time where we're going to transform from this consciousness of the love of power to the power of love. How long is that going to take? You know, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, 300 years? You know, they asked Jesus this very question. And he says, I don't know. Only the Father knows. Only the Father knows. Only that one universal energy that is the all knows. But there's something I think we do know, and that's this. Things are accelerating. Have you noticed? Things are definitely accelerating. So perhaps the coming of this consciousness through you and me into our country and into our world is accelerating as well. You know, it's actually by the Father's divine design. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. You know, I've watched all 3 debates now, and my overwhelming takeaways are, number one, our crisis is a spiritual crisis. Our crisis is a spiritual crisis. And the second one is one we mentioned here. We've really been working it for the last 3 or 4 months. The real transformation away from much of what is going on in the U.S. and on this planet that is not serving us is going to come from the rise in the consciousness of the people. The call I hear as I watch these is this deeper and deeper call for all of us to wake up to our own spiritual power and to this God-given power that we have within us, and to transform this world through the consciousness of love. But where do we start? Where do we start? Is there a spiritual teaching that tells us where to start amidst what we're experiencing here in the U.S., in this world, in our life, in challenging circumstances? Is there always a place to start? Well, let's visit 2,000 years ago when Jesus walks into a very similar situation. And he goes to the Mount of Beatitude to give the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. And he's right at that place where the people are looking for transformation. In fact, they're looking for someone to come, a Messiah to come, and transform the situation, one person to do it, you know? And so let me tell you a little bit about the circumstances that are going on at that time. The people in northern Israel, they're not happy with the calculated control that's going on, and they're wise to it. They're wise to it. And they don't like it. They don't like it at all. Now here's the thing. At that time, the average family in today's U.S. dollars would make about $5,000 in today's U.S. dollars. And they are really being taxed, they're really being controlled, and they're kept in the dark, and they're not happy. I mean, they're in this is not what we want stage, right? This is not what we want. They're making $5,000 from their family, and there's these Jewish taxes, there's these Roman taxes, and it's taking a toll. The Jewish tithe tax. Now, in that day, there was actually, it wasn't a free will offering. There was a tithe tax, and they took out 10%. You were required to take 10% of your produce or earnings and give it to the support of the Levites and the poor. Now, the Levites were those who were really working the temple system. Then there was another tax. It was called the Jewish temple tax, and each man was required to pay a half a shekel. Now, that's another 5% if you actually figure it out in today's dollars. Then there were Roman taxes, tolls and duties, and those were 2 to 5%. Then there was a census tax. The Jews were required to pay another 10% per person. Then there was a town and village tax. Then there was a frontier tax. Bottom line, with all these taxes, it was taking a real toll on the people, and they weren't happy. Many are thinking, they're taking it all from us to build their own kingdoms. To build their own kingdoms. And taxation wasn't the only thing that was going on that Jesus walked into. There was also this Roman occupation. And the Jewish population was under Roman governments, and they were not happy about that. There was tension. There was also extreme social inequality. There was this huge divide between the wealthy elite and the poor. And then there was this religious tension as well. I mean, there were so many ideas about this is the way, no, that's the way, this is what it is, no, that's what it is. Does this sound familiar? Yeah. And how about this one? This one existed back then too. There was misinformation and disinformation. It was this guy, Jesus. He is Beelzebub. He's the devil incarnate. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. If he's left to himself, he'll destroy it all. If she's left to herself, she'll destroy it all. He's the devil, she's the devil, all to protect what? Their love of power. This is what Jesus walked into. Can you see the similarities here? Injustice, the control, the abuse of power, social inequality, the religious bickering, and of course, the age-old trick of they're the devil. That's an age-old trick of trying to maintain your power. So where does Jesus instruct them to start in this day? To really start because their soul wants something different. Let's look at it at the Beatitudes. Now, the first thing you'll notice as soon as Jesus starts to give this sermon, the first thing he does is go up to the mount and he sits down. Yeah, people are lording it over him, over everybody, but he goes up to the mount, and those who are interested in transforming the day go up to the mount too, which clearly saying they go up in consciousness to listen within. And the first thing that Jesus says to them when they come is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, if you're like me, you're thinking, that doesn't sound like much of a starter. Doesn't sound all that profound, does it? I mean, and it certainly doesn't sound like that teaching has the potential to change the day. And furthermore, if you just look at it in English, it's like it doesn't make any sense, right? Blessed are the poor in spirit. And it's certainly not all that inspiring. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, there is a hook there, though. It's like, whoa, if I can come to know what poor in spirit is, I have the kingdom of heaven. So we got to pay attention here. Often I'm sure everyone here this morning has heard many teachings around this, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And usually, most often, I find that the teachings around this, which are really strong teachings, is that be poor in spirit is like to empty yourself. It's like a Buddhist teaching, right? Now, empty yourself of your pride, empty yourself of the need to be right, empty yourself of the need to be in control to try to get it to come out the way you think it needs to be, right? I love the Tao Te Ching. I mean, if you really want to really work on this whole idea of not being in control and just going with the flow of where the universe is taking us, the Tao Te Ching is a great document for that teaching. Listen to what it says about those who are trying to control. Trying to control the future is like trying to take the master carpenter's place. When you handle the master carpenter's tools, chances are that you'll cut your hand. Let the universe shape itself. Or there's also this emptying where we empty ourselves of any resistance. Often our resistance is we're resisting what God wants to do through our life. Right? So you got to empty yourself of that resistance and then empty yourself of any attachments. Right? Those false ideas we have about one another and those on the political scene. We have to empty ourselves of those attachments. So much of our attitudes, of our health, of our life around moving into this new state of life, this new state of health, this new attitude centers around the practice of forgiveness. Have you noticed? Yeah, it's just another form of emptying ourselves. Blessed are the poor in spirit is a call to emptying ourselves. But I would think most this morning here, you've heard that, right? You're aware of that teaching. But what you might not be aware of is that this doesn't really fully communicate the divine spiritual science of the human that Jesus would have been teaching in his northern Aramaic language. Now, I've shared with you many times this gentleman who's taught at many places in Unity. His name is Neil Douglas Klotz, and he is an Aramaic scholar. He actually has spent 40 years studying the culture of northern Israel and studying the northern Aramaic language. And Judy, I just looking at Judy, she bought me this beautiful book from Neil Douglas Klotz on the Gospel of John around that. So thank you, Judy. But these interpretations, as I said, they don't fully communicate. They don't communicate that in the Aramaic language, the sounds of the letters in the words are actually communicating to the soul, right? That was part of the way it worked back then. So there's something very interesting. If you start to go back to all the way back to the Aramaic, rather than just reading something in English in a Bible, right? Let me tell you what Neil Douglas Klotz says that has happened to us since we're only going and reading some English version of what Jesus would have said, or any of the prophets of the Old Testament in Hebrew and these kind of things. What has happened? He says the tragedy of Bible translation has been that expressions meant to resonate. In other words, these expressions are meant to resonate by their sounds, by their letters. When they're spoken in Hebrew or Aramaic, or even sacred texts that are spoken in Sanskrit, has the same thing within it. The tragedy of Bible translation has been that expressions meant to resonate on many levels have been whittled down to wholly gross in their nature and restricted in their nature, creating a division and separation in their nature from God, nature, and humanity. In other words, when we read these things and we just have one simple interpretation, it really is, and we don't hear the vibrations of the words, it's really cutting us off from all that the soul really knows from those vibrations. But I'd like to read for you two possible interpretations that Neil Douglas Klotz gives for this: blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs are the kingdom of heaven. Now, he gives many, but these are two that I chose for this morning. Tuned to the source are those who find their home in their breath. Those who find their home in their breathing, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Second one, tuned to the source. In other words, tuned to its qualities, tuned to its wisdom, to its intelligence, to its guidance, even to its foreknowledge, are those who know their most precious possession is the inhale and exhale of their breath. For theirs is the I can of God. One with the one, we move into this consciousness of I can. I can. Let me share what the Jewish Kabbalist Carlos Suarez writes about our breath. Now, in Hebrew, the word, and as well as in Aramaic, they're very similar. The word for breath or spirit, they're the same word, is ruha. And it's actually spelled rish, vav, hit. And do you hear the sh in rish? Yeah, that's the breath. That's the spirit. You'll hear it in Yeshua. See how it's right in the middle? Yeah, it's like you're looking at somebody showing the way of connecting heaven and earth through the breath. You know, that's why his name is presented that way. So stay with me here. So Carlos Suarez teaches, as well as many mystical teachers, teach that our breath serves as a powerful bridge to the infinite field of possibilities in several ways. First, it connects us to the present moment, anchoring us into the here and now. Another deep inhale and exhale. Do you feel more in the moment? Yeah, you're in the moment. You're in the now. And this is the place that connects heaven and earth. So it goes on. Through focused breath, we can quiet our minds, reduce stress, and open ourselves to new insights and perspectives. This state of openness helps us access a broader range of ideas and possibilities. So then specifically on that word shin, listen to what is said. The concept of breath is linked to the Hebrew letter shin as a vital force that connects the heavenly realm with earthly existence. In this framework, breath symbolizes life and spirit, acting as a bridge between the divine and the material. The profound significance of our breath is that it's a means of accessing higher consciousness. That is a precious gift. That is a precious gift. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Step one that Jesus gave when he walked into that environment was, never forget this. Use your breath to connect to higher consciousness. It will take you, it will guide you, and all of you towards the Master's plan. Stay at home in your breath. Before the election, after the election, during the election, are you with me? Yes. Remember what the Tao Te Ching said. Those who try to control the outcome, stay attached to the outcome, are likely to cut their hand. Yeah. Let the universe shape itself. The musicians want to come forward now. I want to kind of move into the closing stages of this talk this morning. And what I'd like to do is visit a book that was written by a gentleman named Leslie Weatherhead. He was a minister in London. And he wrote a book very much about the Beatitudes. And it was written during World War II, okay? And in the book, Weatherhead describes the arrogance, the ignorance of world leaders who, after World War I, actually thought they had come up with a legislative scheme after World War I that would prevent all future wars. We're going to legislate it, right? And what happened?
Didn't happen.
World War II. Didn't work. He goes on to say, because they were in the midst of World War II, it didn't work, and their political and government schemes, their plan for peace, did not work. And he said the reason that it did not work is because you cannot legislate love. You can't do it. It comes from you and me. The book says this: if we human beings think we can fix the world solely on our own without God, and if we think that through the right government programs or social reforms or scientific discoveries or economic systems, we can set up God's kingdoms of love on earth, we are sorely mistaken, he said. While we in our programs can and should be vessels for that change, the change does not start with us. It starts with God. It starts with prayer. It starts with coming home into our breath and connecting with the higher consciousness of the kingdom of heaven. That's where it all starts. You know, I'm not actually a big fan of this new trend out there where there's all these Bible translations, right? You know, I read recently that there's 300 different Bible translations. I'm thinking at myself at this point, they must make a lot of money when they do that, you know? Must be a good business. 300 Bible translations. So I'm not a fan because often you're reading the bias of the training of the interpreter, right? Yeah, often that can be what it is. But you know, I came across this translation recently of "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," from this new Bible called The Message. Anybody hear of The Message? Oh, right there, yeah. And The Message is written it's kind of cute because it's written in this way. It's like, I'm just going to give it to you in plain English, you know? I'm just going to give it to you. Have you noticed it? Yeah. So here's what it says for "Blessed are the poor in spirit." You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. You're blessed when you're at the end of the rope. With less of you, there is more of God and God's rule. Blessed are you when you're at the end of your rope. Have you noticed that? It's like, I got no other choice.
That's right.
I got to empty myself here. I got to let go of my way because it's not working. It's not working. Blessed are you when you're at the end of the rope. With less of you, there is more of God and of the kingdom of heaven. There is more of the Christ consciousness manifest in your life. So where do we start before the election, after the election? With less of the ego self and more of God's. So stay close to God. Stay in your breath. And as my dear friend Vivian, whose birthday was yesterday, everybody say happy birthday to Vivian.
Happy birthday, Vivian.
We're gonna honor her this morning by wrapping this talk up with what my friend Vivian often says to me. She said, "Remember this, David, God's got it." God's got this. Let the universe shape itself. Namaste. Namaste.